You're lying in bed wondering, is he even attracted to me anymore? You don't want to pressure him, but at the same time, you don't want to ignore this forever. It's not about blame. It's about understanding what's actually going on. So there's 4 things that I want to go over in this video, and the first one is that this isn't your fault and it has nothing to do with how attracted he is to you. I want to talk about some things that you might be unintentionally doing that are actually making the situation worse. I want to talk about what this experience is really like for him, and then I want to talk about what you can actually do to make the situation better. So if you don't know me, my name's Cam Joyner, and I'm a sexual health coach. I've been coaching guys and couples through erectile dysfunction and sexual anxiety for the last 7 years. I had it myself. I had a really painful case, and so I've learned a lot over the years about what to do and what not to do and how this affects you. So the first thing is it has nothing to do with you. So it's so hard to wrap your mind around this, but his erectile problems, his lack of being hard and firm in the bedroom, is not actually a sign that he's not attracted to you. The two things have nothing to do with each other, and that's really, really hard to grasp because it's such an obvious sign of attraction when somebody's hard, But the thing you need to understand is that it doesn't matter who's laying next to him or who's with him in the bedroom or how attractive you look or how sexy your outfit is or how great your body looks or whatever. He's not going to be able to get or stay hard because of anxiety. So his body is actually in a state of vasoconstriction, which means that its body is actually directing blood away from his penis because he's in fight or flight. And so the lack of arousal has nothing to do with attraction. It's that his body thinks it's in danger. He doesn't feel safe in a sexual situation. And the really difficult part about this for him is that he is so confused by this because he knows that he's attracted to you, but his body isn't responding the way that he thinks it should or the way that he would expect it to. And that's a really painful experience for him too, because first of all, he knows that he's hurting you. He knows that you think that he's not attracted to you, and he doesn't know how to fix it. And as men, we try to fix problems, but this is a problem that I promise you, he doesn't understand how to fix. The second thing that's really important to understand is that there are things that you're likely unintentionally doing that's making the situation worse for him and ultimately for you too. It's really common that because the partner tends to get hurt by this, that there's oftentimes comments that are made. Things like, well, we don't have sex anymore, or you can't even have sex. And there's oftentimes women will use, because they're assuming their partner isn't attracted to them, they'll actually make comments that put their relationship in jeopardy. And so this is one of the worst things that can happen from your end because you have to understand what the man is going through. So for him, he values sex significantly more than you do. So chances are you can walk into a bar and pick up any guy that you want and have sex. So for you, sex is not that valuable of a resource. The reasons that you're with him are probably significantly different than what he thinks you're with him for. In his mind, you're with him for great sex because for men, sex is a really scarce resource. And so we assume that because we value it this much, because we don't get it that often, we assume women do too. And so what we don't understand is that there's a lot of other things like our sense of humor and our ability to be productive and our ability to provide and our just being there with you and the fact that we make you laugh and the fact that, we're fun to hang out with and all those other important pieces of a relationship. None of those things really compute to men. And I know this is bizarre, but this is really the case. And so because we think you value sex up here, what we always assume when we have erection problems is that the relationship's in jeopardy. So every time we walk into the bedroom, for you it's probably just an enjoyable sexual experience that you're looking forward to. But for us, literally, if we don't perform well, you're going to dump us and you're going to date the hot guy down the road who probably has bigger penis than us and could make you come harder. This is how men think. This is a very, very common experience for men. And so what ends up happening is one of the major causes of this is the pressures that we put on ourselves. So we put pressure on ourselves to get hard very quickly without much stimulation, to stay hard, not to come quickly so that you can come, and then make sure that we come so that you know that we enjoyed ourselves. And we have to do the whole thing while, no matter what the pressure or life situation is. Really stressed at work, doesn't matter. Completely exhausted, doesn't matter. No matter what, we think we need to be hard. Men, we think we are walking erections. And it's a really strange thing to experience once you start to see this, because it's obviously ridiculous, but this is what your man is thinking. And so because he puts all those pressures on himself, anytime you add another pressure on or you make a comment about something, what it's doing is it's triggering the thing it's triggering the fight or flight mechanism anyway. And so it's making the whole situation worse. So there are the most common time where men develop erection problems is oftentimes when something in the relationship is off or when something's happening at work. So if we have a really stressful work life, it can be a time where erection problems start. But the other time it tends to happen is if we think our relationship's in jeopardy for some reason. And so the worst thing that can happen for a guy is to tell him the relationship's in jeopardy. So, and it may be. I understand that sometimes these problems do put pressure on relationships. But if you really like the guy that you're with, if you care about him, if you love him, and if this problem was fixable and was able to go away, would you want to stay with him? And if the answer to those questions is yes, then even though it's difficult, what I would suggest is to try to not make comments to him about this, because I promise you, he feels a lot worse about it than you think. So this really comes back to the fact that in most societies, men were really taught to just shove our emotions down. So as men, we're taught to idolize like the guy who plays professional sports and then gets hurt, but then comes back in for the big game and just, plays through the pain. And so combined with the fact that we never learned to deal with our emotions anyway, but the fact that sex has become a really painful thing for us, because instead of walking into the bedroom and feeling amazing and excited, what ends up happening is that we're afraid. We are literally afraid to walk into the bedroom. And so, but we'll play through that anyway, because as a man, we think it's our responsibility to walk into the bedroom and give you a great time. And so the other piece of this is that men, we don't, even though you're going through a tough time with this, chances are you probably have a therapist, or you have a friend that you talk to, or you have journaling or some ways that you can process your emotions. But most guys don't have something like that. And so what ends up happening is this stuff just festers inside. And they think about it literally almost every moment of every day. So when I had ED, I was literally thinking about it probably 12 hours a day. Maybe not continuously, but like it would pop into my head almost, as much as the jokes go about guys thinking about sex, that's pretty much what happens when guys can't have sex. That's how often they think about it. And that whole time that they're thinking about that, they're in pain. They're worried. Is my relationship going to end over this? Am I ever going to be able to get hard? Am I going to end up alone forever? And, those are really painful things to deal with on their own. And so what men really need from you, first off is just do your best not to make comments about it. Just remember that both of you are in pain, okay? And of the two of you, there's a very high likelihood that you are the one who's a lot more emotionally mature and capable of dealing with uncomfortable emotions. And so what he needs from you is, in some ways, he needs you to lead a little bit to demonstrate that this isn't a problem that you're going to leave him over. And even if you're at the point where you're like, if this doesn't get better, I might leave him, what I would really strongly suggest is just give it a few months and try and take it from the perspective that both of you want the same thing in this situation. Both of you want to be able to have really good sex. You both want him to be able to get hard. And so partners can make the situation significantly better or significantly worse. So you can't fix this problem for him, okay? This is a really deeply personal battle. It's really deeply intertwined with who we are as men, Our sexuality, our ability to get hard, and our ability to be a man is very tightly intertwined. And one of the things that's really cool about this process is those start to separate. And that does actually create a really unique kind of confidence. But for most guys, while they're going through this, it's a very, very personal journey of really understanding, who am I as a man? And you can't do that for him. And there are some men who are going to take this and they're going to work through it. They're going to throw themselves into it and fully trying everything they can to make it better. And those guys are going to have an amazing transformation. There's going to be guys who take it slow and they are interested in fixing it, but they're just, their process of dealing with this kind of problem is going to be slower. And then there's guys who are just never going to get past it. They're never going to look at it. And you cannot make any of those three things happen. It's really going to be about what they do. But what you can do is, for the first and the second kind of guy, you can help make the process smoother and easier, or you can make it much, much harder. So a client of mine, he had a girlfriend who had actually dated a couple guys who had sexual dysfunction in the past. And so it was a very, very triggering experience for her. And so what would happen is that we started, we would work on his confidence together, and we would start to get him into a better place, get him lined up. And then as soon as, we would get off of a call, she'd just make crappy comments to him, and it would put him right back into an emotional spiral. And, eventually what ended up happening is they ended up breaking up. And he did work through his sexual dysfunction, but it took him a couple more years because he avoided dating for a while. And so, what we want to do in these kinds of situations is recognize, like, what are the conditions that are needed in order for him to be able to get an erection, or at least the best possible conditions. So the first one, help him understand that the relationship is secure. Help him understand all the reasons that you're with him. And this sounds crazy, but because this is such an emotional problem, you can't tell him once. You need to remind him. He needs confidence. Like, his confidence is crushed by this. And the type of confidence that can actually help move it in the right direction is recognizing that you're attracted to him and that you care about him. His sense of humor, whatever the things about him that you like, he needs to know about those things, and he needs to know about them often. Because remember, he does not understand why you're with him. In his mind, if he can't stay hard, then he literally does not understand why you're with him. So you reiterating on a regular basis all the things that you like about him, and that you care about him, and why you love him, and all those things are going to be really helpful for him. The next thing is that he does not know how to communicate about this. So this kind of problem is not usually something that leads to breakups, as long as there's decent communication. And so one of the things that needs to happen is that there needs to be some level of communication about the problem. And the hard part about this is that both partners tend to, in these kinds of conversations, they trigger each other because they share, okay, well, you did this, and then you did this, and basically it just goes back and forth, and it just becomes throwing pain back at each other. And so what you need to try and find a way to do is communicate with him in a way that helps him understand that you want to know more about how it's hurting him. You want to be able to explain that you're also experiencing hurt, but it's not his fault. You know that he wants to be able to get hard, and that he wants to be able to have great sex, and that you're on his team. I would say probably the most helpful thing that you can do is help him understand that the two of you are on the same side. You're on the same side looking at the problem. You're not on opposite sides of the problem, fighting over whose fault it is. Because the two of you working together to try and find the same outcome, if he feels that you're in it with him, it will give him strength. But if you are throwing pain at him, what you're actually doing is creating more work for him, and you're making his insecurities worse, and likely what he'll do is make your insecurities worse. So the situation that will create the best, most harmonious experience is to make sure he's on the same you two are on the same team, but then when you go into the bedroom, let him lead. So one of the worst things that guys can do is they move through the stages of arousal at the stage where they think things should be happening, and they aren't. And so what you want to do is things like, don't take his pants off until he's already hard. Don't start touching him, and don't really start touching his genitals until he's hard. And then just let him decide to go through the stages of progression, because as weird as it is, a woman wanting to have sex, a woman wanting to move forward in a sexual situation actually puts pressure on a guy who's not able to be hard. It doesn't mean that this is how things will be forever, but while he's growing his confidence, it's just going to take a little bit of time before he can let you escalate. So that brings us to the last thing that you can do. So this problem is so deeply intertwined with their confidence that they oftentimes just stay in a triggered emotional state that prevents them from thinking logically about the problem. So most guys will actually spend somewhere between 3 and 5 years fixated on a physical cause before the very obvious anxiety starts to make sense as a potential cause. And so one of the best things that you can do to help your man is actually to book a call with me down below, because I can help you walk through some of the steps that you need in order to move him in the right direction and help set you up to be able to support him in getting past this. This problem is really fixable in a very short period of time. Most of the guys that I work with, they see results in the first 30 days. They see a noticeable improvement in erection quality. And by 90 days, typically they've hit the 20 times in a row mark and they don't think about this anymore. And so if you want to help your man, the best thing you can do is to book a call with me down below and allow me to work with you and hopefully eventually him too together so we can help put this behind him for good. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.